Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And, I say this all the time, often at the outset of shows is, we try to cover new topics and broaden and expand the horizons of our viewers, our listeners. And we're certainly going to do that today because literally in 6.5+ years of doing the show, we have never talked about at least some of the topics we're going to talk about today. Before I even introduce our guest, I'll tell you that we're going to talk about, later in the show, we're going to talk about the sex industry. Oh yeah, that's what I said, the sex industry. You guys are going to love this one. So our guest today is Madam Olivia LaRue. Liv is an independent courtesan and madam in Reno, Nevada. In addition to this, she is also a certified sex therapist working as a surrogate partner and relationship intimacy coach. She's an advocate and educator for safe sex work who mentors new clients and escorts in best practices and safety. She has been in the business for 10 years. And in her spare time and before that, she's a classically trained master chef. And prior to becoming a courtesan, she was an executive chef and ran a successful catering company, among other culinary endeavors. Liv, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken.
Yeah, so I've been looking forward to having you on. Like I said, we try to cover new topics. I know we were talking before the show started, before we went on air, about covering new and cool things. And, I think really like we typically do with our guests, we'll get started with talking about your entrepreneurial journey because, we're not going to just talk about the sex industry, but I think, your entrepreneurial journey leading up to, what you're doing now will be really interesting for everyone to learn about.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for offering me the opportunity to talk about my entrepreneurial journey. I think like many entrepreneurs, I was just a born hustler. I remember selling candy at the pool and all these little startups I had. And this is before the internet. I know I'm dating myself, but this is before we could do things online to make money. And so I was very crafty, and I'm actually an artist. I was a glass blower professionally, traveled all over the country doing craft shows and whatnot. And then I became a chef. And like you said, I am a classically trained master chef, and I did that for quite a while. It's where there's a will, there's a way, Ken. And I just had a hard time working for other people, working for the man.
Yep.
Call me stubborn, obstinate, but that's just the way it is. And I became what I would call successful with very little startup capital. The first time I opened a real business, my catering, $2,500 on a credit card I could use. And I managed to make that really thrive, and I was able to support my young family with that income and grow my business and do amazing things. I really surpassed all the goals I had set for myself, and we'll talk more about that in my tips about setting goals. But then one day came where I just had some people call it a moment of clarity. Are we allowed to use adult language on this video?
Absolutely. Yeah. Whatever you're comfortable with.
I feel like the universe kind of just bitch slapped me because Ken, I always wanted to be a sex worker ever since I was young, ever since I was a little girl. And I think many sex workers have that in them, that they know that they're going to be a sexual woman and that they have this power and that they can use it to get ahead. I think that is a common theme among sex workers. It can't just be me. And I was mopping my kitchen. I had just sent all my staff home to save on labor costs, that bottom line. And since you're the boss, you're the last one there. And I was mopping my kitchen, and I literally threw down my mop and I said, F this. And the next day, took some selfies, put them up on the internet, and away I was going on my journey of being a courtesan, which was, it's a very exciting journey. But it's just all about that following that passion inside of us, right? Following that fire, that spark, that voice that tells us that we need to be doing something else and we're going to make it work no matter what. And I had that, and it was so strong. I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And I'm really glad I didn't ignore it anymore, because I really blossomed into the woman I am today. And it was an amazing transformation.
So I guess going back, you know, you were in the art work, you're doing a lot of art, you're traveling around, like you said, doing shows and things like that. Obviously, I think at least a very related field. But what was the transition, and what caused you to transition from, you know, sort of the art world into becoming a chef even?
That's a good question. Thank you. Well, I'm from Ohio, like we were talking about before the story, before the podcast. I'm from Ohio, and there's a big art community in Ohio. You know, people might think that there isn't, but there really is. And that whole frontier, like glass blowing and blacksmithing and ceramics and woodworking, and that American craft movement is really strong in Ohio. Well, I moved to Reno, and there's not really a lot of that out here. I was surprised. I mean, if you go to California, 12 more miles west, there's all kinds of art, but I'm not going to California. So I needed to do something, and I always wanted to be a chef. And again, with that passion, at that time in my life, the passion was to be a chef. And so I got a cooking magazine, and I started making some of the recipes. I was already a good cook. I'd already been working in restaurants, waitressing, bartending, cooking, whatever. It's put yourself out there, you know? I just put myself out there. And I feel like entrepreneurship is so much about just being brave and following a spark and just doing it, you know, maybe not knowing what's going to happen next, just doing it and finding out as you go. So that's what I did. That's how I became a chef. I don't know if I answered your question, but it was basically out of need. I needed to make some money, and I couldn't do it making art.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like you said, you transition into, you know, you move west, and like you said, the art scene wasn't as plentiful out in Reno and out in Nevada. So, you know, you had to shift gears. And, you know, what you said, we talk about that a lot on the show, is, you know, the idea of an entrepreneur is, you know, I've heard this, I didn't coin the phrase, but someone said, you know, an entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff and then figures out how to build a plane on the way down. Right. Yeah. You're just confident in your abilities. You know that you'll make it work. You don't know how the heck it's going to work. You don't possibly know all the obstacles and challenges that are going to be thrown at you, but you know, and you're confident in your own abilities, that you'll figure it out some way, or come hell or high water, you'll figure it out.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So it sounds like you did actually go on and you went to culinary school of some sort and all that.
I did. Yes. I went to culinary school and got trained, and it's a whole interesting story, but I eventually did start my own catering company and work my way up into a corporate executive chef position. Nice.
We're going to hit a break here. I got lots more questions, guys. Look at this. I got all kinds of questions here. We're going to hit a break. You can find out more about Liv and what she's got going on at livlarue.com. We'll put it in the show notes as well. And you can also connect with her on LinkedIn. We'll come back after the break. We'll give the Mr. Biz tip of the week, and then we'll continue talking with Liv. We got a whole bunch of other questions to ask Liv about her entrepreneur journey, as well as diving into the sex industry.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Are you ready to automate your business? Automation is the key to scaling a business and building wealth. It's also one of the most difficult things for a small business owner to do on their own. If you're looking for help with automation, Pulse Technology CRM can help. We have an exclusive offer for Mr. Biz Nation. We will build everything for free, even if it's a sophisticated funnel. Visit thepulsespot.com/Mr. Biz for this exclusive offer.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. It is time for the Mr. Biz tip of the week. This one's a short one, but one I've said this to my kids, and I say it to people that I mentor. People probably roll their eyes a lot when I say it, but the tip this week is stop talking about it and start being about it, especially as an entrepreneur or a wantrepreneur, as I often say. People who are talking about, oh, I got these ideas, I want to do this, I want to do that. Do something. Take imperfect action. Just like we were talking about in the first segment with Liv, she didn't know how the heck all this stuff was going to play out, but she just took the leap and she started taking action. I'm sure she had a bunch of challenges and things that came out of left field that she didn't expect, but she took action. She didn't just sit and talk about, oh, I think one day I want to do this. Oh, I want to do that. She took action. And that's what you need to do as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. Don't be afraid of taking some risk. You got to take some risk sometime. High risk, high reward, as they say. And so that's the tip of this week. Stop talking about it, start being about it. All right. So again, this week, guys, we're talking with Liv LaRue. Find out more at livlarue.com. So Liv, I was saving this from the last segment. So we talked about, your transition from a bunch of different things, but essentially we picked up with, your craft and your art stuff into being a chef. You said you had your catering business, and you mentioned that you're mopping the floor one day, everyone's gone, and you're like, okay, this is it, I'm done. Was there a particular thing that was an epiphany? You said you'd always, even as a young child, wanted to be in the industry, but was there something was there like an epiphany, like that's it, that caused you to think that way, to think I'm done, like I got to do something different?
Very good question. Thank you for asking. Yes, there was an epiphany. And I think that if there's anybody out there listening who is in this industry, or I don't want to trigger anybody, is what I'm trying to say. I have a disclaimer to my epiphany that it could be triggering, but many, many sex workers have sexual trauma in their background. And I had an event, a sexually traumatic event. And after that, it was like something clicked in my brain. And it was like, if that person can do that to me and hurt me that bad, then what really could a stranger do? It was like one of those things where freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, right? I felt so hurt and broken from this event. And I was like, well, I don't think that anything could make it worse. So I'm just going to go with this. Okay. And funny enough, sex work is really healing. I'm not saying if you have sexual trauma that you should go out there and start prostituting yourself, but I'm saying for me and for others that I've talked to, it was a very healing journey being in sex work. And so I think it was a God-given gift, all of it.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned during the first segment that you took some selfies, put it on the internet, and off you went. How did you evolve into the industry? So obviously with the pictures and things like that, but has your entry into the sex industry, how's that sort of evolved over the last 10 years or so?
Thank you for asking. It started with like a sugar daddy, sugar baby stuff. Okay. And then it went into full service escort. I was learning a lot on my own. It was mostly self-taught, actually. There wasn't a lot of people out there to mentor. But however, I did run into a business coach, and I love business coaches. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, just like every other industry, right? But this business coach, he was an old fat guy. He wasn't in the industry I was in, but my niche, my clients. I'm not going to say it, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
My clients are in his demographic, so he could give me an inside scoop onto what my clients are thinking. And that was a game changer. When that happened, this business coach paid for itself in less than a year, in like 3 months. I met my best clients taking the advice that he gave me. And it was really, really, really helpful. And I recommend that to anybody getting into business for themselves that might not have the experience and they're feeling a little nervous. Talk to somebody that knows what's going on and can help you.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you purposely did it. It sounds like you did, but to think that a business coach in that demographic would even be able to help you, or would be like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I don't want to involved with this. This is bad stuff and, whatever. So first of all, hats off to him that he, had an open mind and said, look, I know business. I don't care this is the way I feel. I know business. I don't care what your business is. I'll figure it out. Within reason. I don't want to get involved in illegal activities, of course, but I kudos to him and for you for recognizing like, hey, who are going to be my clientele? I mean, this guy kind of fits, so he could probably be able to help, right?
Yep, pretty much.
What's interesting. So now, define for me as well as the audience. Probably a lot of people don't know, what is a courtesan?
A courtesan is generally speaking, a courtesan is a type of word from the 1800s or 1700s, a sex worker who's more educated, more worldly, more of a companion. Sex workers, and they're all good. They all have their perks, So that's what I am. You can look it up on different definitions for courtesan. So I prefer the more positive ones.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and again, we should make sure that all the listeners and viewers understand where you're at, what you're doing. This is not a legal activity. Where you're located in the United States, this is all legal stuff. It's not illegal. And so I want to make sure that no one's like sitting back there with their hand on their chin thinking, oh my gosh, this is, craziness and terrible. The way I look at this, I think it's fascinating that, you even had this vision as a young child that, you kind of wanted to be in this industry. Where do you think that came from? I mean, again, I know you said you had trauma later in your life, but was there just always a fascination with it, or?
It was always a fascination. It was just natural. I think it came from God, honestly. I think this is a calling, a spiritual calling.
Yeah, well, I look at this. I'm a firm believer in like every person on the face of the earth. I feel this way, at least. Every one of us has at least one skill, at least something that we're really, really good at. And I feel like a lot of people never realize what that skill is because they're too busy and they get too caught up in life checking the box. I got a job, I work 9 to 5, I come home, I eat dinner, I go to bed, repeat, and they never explore that. And so, maybe Michael Jordan in basketball, if he would have never picked up a basketball and he was a plumber, he might've been a decent plumber, but he would have never known that he could be potentially the best basketball player that had ever played the game. And I feel like everyone has that. And so I encourage everyone to really explore that and figure out, what is it? Because we all have unique skill sets and different types of, industries, niches, whatever it might be. I mean, and it sounds like, you kind of did some different things and kind of meandered towards, where you're at now. And it seems like you're very happy and content with what you're doing. And by your success, you must be pretty good at it. So, again, I think that's another testament to that, that mindset.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Well, guys, we're going to hit another break here. We're going to come back. We're going to get some tips from Liv because, again, she's bootstrapped some businesses and things like that and explored and landed where she's at. LivLaRue.com. Come back after the break on Mr. Biz Radio.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Business owners have a continually growing to-do list with little time for revenue-producing activities. With Check Off Your List and their experienced team of virtual assistants, you can focus on growing your business. Visit checkoffyourlist.com to learn how Check Off Your List skilled team can handle your day-to-day tasks like social media, bookkeeping, calendar maintenance, and much more. Contact Check Off Your List at checkoffyourlist.com or call 888-262-1249 to see how their virtual assistants can help you live to work rather than work to live.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. And again, this week we're talking with Liv LaRue. You can find out more at livlarue.com. Again, we'll put it in the show notes. You can also connect with her on LinkedIn to find out more about what she's got going on. You can follow her there. I will say, Liv, I reached out. You probably didn't even see it yet, but I reached out to connect with you on LinkedIn. And I got to tell you, when I was looking through your LinkedIn profile a little bit, I saw that you recently were on another podcast and you were in a jacuzzi.
Yes, I was, Ken. It was the anti-professional podcast. And so I thought being in the bathtub, pretty anti-professional.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. That was interesting though. It was interesting. But so I guess one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, especially in this segment, was, and I think we mentioned it in some of the email exchanges, was in a legally challenging industry that you're in. You know, I'm sure there's all sorts of different boxes you got to check and do this and do that and do this. And it made me think a lot of, especially what's been going on, especially in the United States here over the last several years, in the cannabis industry, right? Another legally challenging industry. So I was hoping that you could give us a little bit of insight of, some of those challenges that you face that maybe, if, again, using the same example I used earlier, if you're a plumber, right? Plumbers have to do certain things, but it's not I wouldn't call it a legally challenging industry to be in. What are some of those hurdles that you faced, and how do you overcome some of those obstacles?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. So many places in the United States, it is legal to be an escort. It is legal to have an escort service. And so my first piece of advice is to research where you are and the municipal code. I found that all I needed to do was get a privileged business license, which is a quarterly business license. And I needed to get a card, a sheriff's card, which a lot of adult cabaret dancers also need to get. And so it was right in there in that category of adult bars, dance clubs and stuff. So if I researched that, then I found the steps I needed to take to remain legal. And then I noticed that many places offer that same municipal code, privileged business license route to take if anybody's interested in becoming a legal escort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you, during that, once you started getting into business, or have you experienced, like, does the law, like, do you feel like they bother you a lot? Do they check in on you often? Are they pretty chill about it?
They're very chill. I love cops. First of all, I love cops. I offer a discount for cops, and I've had cops as clients. I don't really advertise any illegal services. It's illegal to advertise a sexual service in exchange for money. And so we use wording that kind of skirts around that so that there's no entrapment issues. And this is all about using your brain, right? This is about working smarter, not harder. And then I just try to be honest. To live outside the law, you must be honest. That is a Bob Dylan quote, and I live by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed on your website, I think, and I might get the nomenclature not exactly correct, but I think you mentioned something about the girlfriend experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes, GFE, the girlfriend experience. There's many different kinds of services you can receive from a sex worker. You can have a porn star experience. You could have just a full body sensual massage. A girlfriend experience is one of those categories, and it's like having a date with your girlfriend, right? So there's certain things you would do with your girlfriend and certain connection that you would expect from a girlfriend. I pride myself on being able to connect to anybody instantly, pretty much. That's a skill I've honed in this industry that I recommend anybody in this industry hones. It's very, very useful.
So let me ask this: how often do you do you yourself or even other people that you're connected with in the industry, I'm really curious about this. I see, how often are there, high level businessmen that are going to some big event and they're not married, they don't have a girlfriend, and they need some arm candy. Let's be honest with, let's call it what it is. And really, that's all they want. They just need someone, a hot woman, to go with them and be the arm candy for the evening. So they have a female companion, and they're not showing up by themselves. Does that happen often as well?
That does happen often. I think those women like to call themselves ambience models.
Okay.
Maybe I'm using dated words. I don't know what. So that is definitely a category. My clients will do that with me, but I don't get sought after to be that ambience model. I don't know why. I would love to, maybe it's where I live. A lot of people come to Reno to play, and if a lot of people also come to Reno and they hire women from the ranches, like the brothels. So maybe that's what's happening. Unsure. I'm fine with how it is though. But yeah, that's a thing. Check it out.
So I guess that brings up another question. As you're, have you thought about becoming associated with a brothel, or if not, why is that? Or have you thought about starting your own actually?
Thank you for asking. Originally, my original fantasy when I was young was to be a madam at a brothel. The reason I don't work at a brothel is because they want you to commit to 3 weeks out of the month living on site, which I cannot commit to. I am a mother and I don't do that. I'm not going to do that. I would love to manage a brothel one day, maybe when my kids are out of the house. It seems like it wouldn't mesh with my personal life right now. I have nothing against brothels though. Great. It's a great experience. They're also much more expensive than hiring an independent escort. Just letting you know, for anybody planning to come out to Nevada, you expect to pay twice as much because the house takes 50%.
Yeah, that's what that's what I thought you might say, but it makes perfect sense. If it doesn't fit, your lifestyle and your personal life, then that's kind of the deal breaker right there. Like you said, especially as a mother and trying to juggle all those responsibilities. And, again, I didn't know that. I mean, wanting you to live on site for 3 weeks out of the month. I mean, clearly there's only a certain population of people that's going to work for. Yeah. But I've heard good things from women who work at brothels. It's a different kind of service. More transactional, less personal, generally speaking. Yeah. Well, and as you mentioned, I think a lot of people that travel to Reno travel out there for fun. And so they're looking for fun, and maybe that's all they want is that transactional type of experience in a lot of cases. So interesting. So I guess, let me see what direction. So I guess one other thing I'll ask is, what are some resources that helped you live, not only in the sex industry, but, even just as your journey as an entrepreneur, what's like maybe 1 or 2 resources that were really helpful to you?
Okay. A couple of resources that were really helpful to me were actually my knowledge of starting a business, basically branding, finding a niche, promotion, having goals, smart goals. And these are all resources I found from within or from my own research. Online, I found a couple of resources, but they're not around anymore and they're not really worth mentioning. It was mostly experience. Experience was my biggest resource. I hope that was a good enough answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the school of hard knocks, right? Again, like we were talking about earlier, is just taking action, knowing that you're not going to get everything right initially, but you'll figure it out. You'll learn, what doesn't work and what parts of what you did worked, and, get rid of the bad stuff and do more of the good stuff. You mentioned branding. I don't want to end the show here without mentioning your personal brand, Wild West MILF.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, Liv, look, as always, time flies when you're having fun. I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been fascinating. And so thanks very much for coming on.
I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your week. LivLaRue.com. We'll put it in the show notes as well. Have a great rest of your week. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
Do To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.